So my husband and I were up having dinner at Harpoon Willie's last Friday when the siren went off in Williams Bay. It was pretty cool. There's this big room.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, stock, and we were having a meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, call the meeting to order. Harvard Administration Committee meeting, July 16th, 2025, 6:30 p.m. Roll call, John Lavallee, Joel Kriete, Lisa Haderlein are here, and that means we have a quorum, so we will bring Rosa Luna in on phone.
Hello.
Good evening, Rosa. This is the mayor. We're adding you or bringing you into the administration committee meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so have a full complement tonight. Great. Item number 4 on the agenda is public comment. Does anybody have anything to say that's not otherwise on the agenda? Because when we do discuss the items on the agenda, you'll have a chance to speak if you choose. Okay, no public comment. Okay, item number 5 is discussion action on permitting on-street parking. And yeah, and I'd like to, if I could, as the chair, I guess, just have us take a step back in terms of understanding why we have a prohibition on parking between 2 and 5 a.m. in the city. And I have not found anything in the ordinances that explain why we have that prohibition. And not every place has that prohibition. So I'd like to start there with why do we have the prohibition on street parking between 2 and 5?
So if you go back in history, and I didn't make the notes for that, so I apologize, but if you go back in history, you can look, unfortunately, those particular minutes are not published online because we only go back so far online. So there are archives in the city's server. So I did go back and look, and I believe in 2006-ish,
Okay.
2005, something like that. In the 4th Ward, it all started in the 4th Ward. I don't know why it was the 4th Ward, but the 4th Ward started. And maybe, our 2 employees who were employed at the time and were on the police force when it happened might be able to give some insight. But it might even be a little bit before, but 2003 is actually what sticks in my head. At any rate, it started in Ward 4. At that time, it was 2 to 6 a.m.
Okay.
And from what I can gather from the meeting minutes, what was cited was the inability for first responders to be able to get through the streets when there's parking on both sides of the street. That was one issue. The biggest issue was inability to plow around, like trying to plow when the cars were parked on the street was a major problem in that area of the city. And cars were being abandoned on the street, and the city had no enforcement mechanism to kind of get rid of these cars. And then lastly, There certainly was an issue, and whether it was specific to this ward or not, that I don't know, because it's not, it's, you have to read between the lines to get this piece, and that is overcrowding. So one way to combat that issue is to eliminate parking on the street.
Okay. So,
Then subsequent to that,
Yeah.
sorry, so to continue on with the history, that was instituted in Ward 4. I believe it went 2 to 3 years. And then I think it was 2006 is when it was extended to the entire city, and it was changed from 2 to 6 to 2 to 5. And I believe it was carried out to the rest of the city for the very same reasons that it was in Ward 4.
okay. So, I mean, okay, with the snow plowing, let me just say, okay, that's a different issue. I mean, that's, you just say, okay, if it's snowing, you can't park on the street.
Yes,
right?
but that was an issue because, let's say, in some nights, back then, we might have only had 2 officers on shift at night. It's
Yeah.
snowing at night, declare snow emergency, and you've got 100 cars parked on the street. The officer had to sit at each car and wait for the tow truck driver to come, and we had no coverage for the city trying to remove the cars so we could plow the streets.
Right, but you could have that during certain months, for instance, because we're not having, plow emergencies in July.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. I'm just giving you all the
Okay.
laundry list of reasons of why it was enacted, and has been in place since. So.
And so what makes it uniquely, I'm just going to ask, what makes it uniquely challenging for first responders to have cars parked on the streets between the hours of 2 and 5 a.m. as opposed to every other time?
So, like the mayor said, a lot of this did start in Ward 4.
Yeah.
And if you go in Ward 4, a lot of the streets are narrow.
Yeah.
And parking is allowed on a lot of both sides. And when you're trying to get fire trucks, ambulances, and
Yeah.
squad cars in between cars parked on both sides, because you can't go into the grass,
Right,
so it's very narrow.
okay. But it's narrow all day long.
Mhm.
And so during the middle of the day, I mean, how do we deal with that?
It's really never arisen to an issue because a lot of people are at work.
So I think the issue is once people are home and in bed and asleep, if
Okay.
they're parking on the street all night long, that's when the street becomes the most congested.
Okay.
And then as far as the mayor said, back in the late 90s, when we only had a couple people on midnights, if there was a snow emergency and it had started snowing after people went to bed,
Yeah.
we would literally go door to door, run the plate, find the address, knock on the door. If they didn't answer, then have to call a tow truck. And even today, I don't believe that there's the staffing of the midnight shift.
No,
is
so back
adequate to
in
keep
the
up.
day, yeah, because I was here back, I started, well, I was sworn in 2000, but we were still doing that. So basically, when you had a car on the street, you would pull up, turn your lights on, and you would sit there, and then you would call it into dispatch, run the plate in your car, see if it even belonged anywhere in the area.
Yeah.
And then, back then, obviously, really nobody had a lot, people had landlines, and so we
Right.
would try to find a phone number, call, go up to the house, knock on the door, wait 15 minutes before we could call a tow, and during snow emergencies, we were towing anywhere from 40 to 60 cars a night. So, just to clear the streets. And
Okay.
after so many years, that's when Chief
And-
Casey
Okay.
was like, this is getting ridiculous.
And that was mostly in the Fourth Ward?
That was all over town.
Oh, okay,
That was all over town.
okay. But it was a bigger problem in the Fourth
Yeah.
Ward? Okay, interesting.
And to be clear, I didn't live in the community at that time.
Yeah.
When I moved here, that ordinance was already in place.
I mean, did we consider, doing something like only allowing parking on one side of the street?
I don't recall. I was just a patrol officer then.
Yeah, gotcha.
Did or not either.
I'm just trying to think of
Well, when it was enacted for Ward 4, Alderman Hoeflich actually was on city council at the time
Yeah.
and voted for it. He might be able to offer some insight to that. He, at that time, was in Ward 4. So maybe he can recall what's going on there, because I think at that time he lived in,
I thought he was up here, but he might have been over there.
no, I think he lived in Country Brook at the time, I think.
Oh, no, I
But he
thought
was-
he was up here.
I-
Just because I remember he did a zoning variance
Well, it could
to
be.
add parking for his wife.
No, he hasn't been,
Yeah.
he hasn't been up there for,
No, not up here,
Oh.
but it was more in the central part of,
It could be. He definitely was on city council. I'm not sure which ward he was in. I thought he
Okay.
was in Ward 4. I do know at that time for certain, I believe Darrell Perkins was on council at that time and was indeed in
Yeah.
Ward 4. Those two gentlemen are still in the community. They might be able to offer some insight, but I don't know. The rest of the aldermen, I think most are not
even living in town.
leaving in or living.
Yeah.
So
Carl wasn't on the
I
council
believe
then?
Carl was on
Okay.
the council then. Hitterlong, gosh, I'd have to go
Was
back.
that,
long
was
time.
that back
roster,
when,
but
when
it
was
long.
Henning still mayor?
I believe,
Ralph was, I believe.
Yeah, Ralph-
Either Ralph was on his way out or Jay was on his way
I
in.
think for when it was enacted for Ward 4, I think Ralph was the mayor, and then when it was enacted for the entire community,
It was Jay?
Jay Nolan was mayor.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so. Just making some notes. So another question I had is, so if there's a snow emergency, we don't enforce the sidewalk, parking across the sidewalk, right?
We would give a pass.
Yeah, they get a pass.
I
What
wouldn't
if?
put, I wouldn't put that in the ordinance that we're giving a
Right.
pass, but
Right, but
Yes.
that's our, yeah, what if we did that between the hours of 2 AM and 5 AM? Because how many people are using the sidewalks between 2 AM and 5 AM?
that issue arises is when is the actual car parked there, though? I mean, if they park there beforehand, and then if the guys are on calls or whatever, you know, the middle of the night is when a lot of parking is done. You know, then,
So maybe it's,
so it's a problem between, 6 o'clock when they get home and 2 AM, but then,
The chief and I, when we were discussing this, talked about the possibility of removing the 2 AM to 5 AM. But in doing that, if it did become a problem again, it would be more difficult to get it back than to keep it and try to work around it for those that have the sidewalk parking challenges.
Are we trying to put a little more attention on this permit issue first before taking things away or adding things?
Well, I
are we
think the
looking for a
intention here is
permit?
just try and figure out what is a solution.
Okay,
And one solution would be permitting on-street parking.
all right. I tried to canvass as much as I could, throughout the ward. So some good questions came up with this permit. And will this permit just be just cars, just trucks? Could it apply to boats, trailers, other vehicles, or is it just cars? How do you determine what the permit goes to, and will you ask for?
boats and trailers are prohibited from being parked on the street overnight.
Right, but we know that's.
I mean,
kinda-
if it's hooked up to a
Yeah.
vehicle, it's permitted, but
Right.
you just can't park.
And then to get the permit, would you require proof of insurance of that
No.
vehicle?
No.
Okay. I'm just repeating the questions that I was asked to ask. Some of the other issues were folks like it clean. They want to know why a small minority who is not compliant, what seems to them is why does the majority of the town have to open this up to them? They're following the rules in many other ways, and quite a few didn't feel it was fair to consider. The rules are there for a reason. They should stay. They're not big fans. There was a lot of great discussions, but just concentrating on the permit, there was just a lot of things like, one great idea I heard was, if it's $500, well, how much is it to extend your driveway to the easiest side of your house? Wouldn't that be about $500? Could the city get in touch with a paving company that if they knew they could get 500 driveways?
It's gonna be more than that, but.
That's
but
just what I'm
If
saying.
you pay the $500 for 2 or 3 years,
Right.
then you might as well extend your driveway.
Or if somebody came in and said, okay, the zoning allows you to put that driveway in, add to your space, you waive the fee for the permit, streets are still clear, and then you add parking to your property. And would there be a company out there willing to make a big deal? So it's in your best interest to do so. But I don't know if that creates a new problem, you know? And that only applies to home ownership.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, which isn't the only, situation.
So,
Yeah.
you know, that's just in, you know, a couple,
And-
I'll scan over some more,
and
but
I
I
have
don't want
to
to take up
just
all the time on the permit questions.
Say that the $500, when I saw that, I thought, oh, that seems discriminatory.
So
me.
just so you're aware, Alderman, or Alderwoman, to park in the city parking lots downtown for the residents
Yeah.
is $45 a month, which is $540 for the year.
Okay,
So it's actually giving them a break on if they live downtown and had to park in the city parking lots, if they live downtown and needed parking.
okay.
So it is cheaper. It is a break. One of the other things that I was thinking of after I had written you the memo was, like, say there's a family and it's not an issue all year long until their college kid comes home with their car. And then it's an issue for 3 months. And then, maybe a month around the holidays or a month and a half, however long they're off. So if it was approved and that's that's the route you wanted to go, I would ask that there be a caveat put into the ordinance that the chief of police, whether it's me or somebody else in the future, would have the authority to grant a shorter period, because why make a resident pay for a full year when their student or,
Right.
a visitor or family that's
Yeah.
coming to stay with them for just a few months?
Yeah.
Would seem like
But that
in
would
that
be-
sense
but that
you
would
could
be-
prorate it for that period.
But then I would suggest that you charge the 45 like we do for the city lots
Okay,
during that time period,
Yeah.
not the prorated cheaper rate for buying for a year.
And that provision wouldn't be a part of the ordinance. What would be a part of the ordinance would be that the chief of police had
Discretion.
to determine that, so that it wasn't broad everybody. They would have to be
okay.
to make sure that it was a legitimate.
This issue came up from, mostly from homeowners, did it not? Or from people that live in homes,
Correct.
That is correct.
right? So we're not talking about the apartment dwellers or whoever. We're talking about people that live in homes.
Neighbors
And-
of the people.
correct. Correct. So all these homes have garages, do they not?
Correct.
So the UDO dictates that each single-family home must have 2 parking spaces. That's what's required.
2 parking spaces, including the garage?
No, that does not include the garage. 2 parking spaces. If you have a garage, if it's a 2-car garage, you now have 4 parking
But
spaces.
a lot of the town, it's a one-car garage.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And in the older parts of town, typically the garage is detached and it is in the backyard. So they have a much longer driveway where this isn't an issue.
Right.
Where this really is an issue is in the newer subdivisions where our setback requirement for the front face of the building is 25 feet from the property line. You cannot fit 2 cars unless they're small compact cars behind each other in 25 feet. That's because the driveways are built to provide 2 parking spaces in accordance with our specifications. The real issue here is, and I've heard it directly from a number of the homeowners, well, Harvard should make sure that they can park more than 2 cars in their driveway. That is a possibility. It would require changing the zoning, the UDO, to accommodate more vehicles. But it also means that we would have to change the setback rules. It also means that the particular lots are going to have to increase likely to accommodate that additional square footage, to accommodate 2 cars in tandem.
Right.
I'm not sure that the city is interested in doing that. If you are, we could certainly pursue that, but it's not going to fix the problem for those existing homes today.
I think, going back to what Joel was saying, it's a handful of people. So we're going to change everything for a handful of people. I think is ridiculous. That's why, I do like this permit thing, even though I'm against using our streets as parking lots, which is what this permit, any way we go, that's what it does. I think that, people the people that have garages, but use their garages to store crap, and then have an issue with parking in their driveways. They don't have enough room because they have no room in their garage. I have a problem with that. So, once again, I don't see this being a huge problem in the city. It's a problem for a handful of people. And so we're going to change our ordinances and everything else for a handful of people. I don't see a reason.
Along those lines,
I was just going to say, can we see if Rosa has any, because I could hear noise from there, if she has any comments?
Rosa, do you have any comments?
No, I'm just listening to, the history and all that, and I agree with Chief Tyson. A handful of people that are complaining, and to change the ordinance. And if they, if they want to park there all year, then get the permit. And that settles the problem, solves it.
what did we end up overall with tickets? I think it was quoted 133.
133, yes.
And I'm sure a certain amount are doubles or triples.
We stopped when this whole issue came up just to see where it was going to go.
Sure,
So,
but I'm sure some of those are doubles or triples, right? It's not
Yeah, some of-
133 single.
it's very, I think it was like 40% were paid.
Mhm.
And so now we're either in the double mark of
Okay.
$50, and probably some of them are already sent to court.
Is that fair to assume some folks who paid took accountability and said, okay, I get it? I mean, we do have a history of not enforcing this. There was a good amount of people who did get it,
Mhm.
said, I just figured you guys didn't do it, so I didn't care, and I never had a ticket. Most online will say 5 years, 10 years, whatever. But really, ultimately, this particular issue is an issue by choice. You choose to do this. Nobody forced you. And I do have sympathy for the situation on both sides. I get it, right? But I don't believe the city of Harvard or the police, who do end up getting blamed for this, is responsible for solving this problem. There should be more accountability on these types of things. And I think that all of us should maybe, find the right words to say that gently, because, we do establish certain standards or habits, even when we don't enforce or recommend, because it is easy to assume, well, it must be okay, the neighbor does it, the guy does it, so in a way, being new and all, I'd like to know where the city would like to go with stuff like this. How do you want your city to look like, your neighborhoods?
Right.
Back to it, what is our count, 9,000, 9,500? I hear it's all over the map, but if there's 9,000 people, more or less following the law.
Well, and when I did some research, research on this to see what other communities are doing, the only community that I found in the county that actually had a nice description of why they limited the late night parking is for community character, is they didn't want to have an urban character to the town.
Yeah.
They wanted to preserve the small town character. Lake in the Hills, which,
So it would probably offer a clean line of sight for anybody.
yeah, I mean, which makes sense, because it's when I've lived in cities like Chicago, that's the only place you have to park, on the streets. So they're lined with cars all the time. Evanston, same thing.
Yeah.
So that was their main reason.
Well, especially in Chicago, and especially lots of parts of the city, the house didn't have dedicated parking. They parked on the street, where our ordinance requires
Right.
dedicated parking spaces for each residence. So.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah. So I see
And also,
that.
too, I think the police deserve a lot of credit. This had to be tough. You know it was coming when you did it. So I do thank you guys for everything you had to endure and continue to endure.
Thank you.
It's much appreciated by a lot of folks. I've recommended phone calls, emails, letters, whatever, if that's how they feel. But, you know, a lot of folks said, I'm an investor. I've invested in this town, and I want my money out, my money's worth. A few folks, they said, well, you got anything else you'd like to fix? Yeah, the grass tickets. Grass should be 8 inches, because I don't agree with 5. Where do you get 5? I go, I don't know, take it up with somebody else. But I don't know how you came up with 5 inches, right? I go, most of this stuff is from, like Lisa was saying, what does the community want?
Yeah.
And I'm sure they've approached multiple versions of council and representation to say, this is how I want this to go. This is what I'd like you guys to do, to legislate these things. And, you know, again, I get it. There's some people that just, it's not the right time. It's not the right thing.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm trying to find a good way to balance it. But in fairness, I'm seeing that the majority here has a stronger argument. Unless I can hear something better from those who've been affected negatively, you know, I'm not hearing it. So again, to change those rules or to even change the opinion of the police and the council, you know, we need consistency and we have to have clarity. And not just in this issue, just a lot of things, because one thing I noticed, I don't know if anybody took the time, I went through the town a lot. In the first week or so, it was a lot of, this is, you know what? Within 3 weeks, everything got cleaned up. The message seemed to have been like, all right, they're serious this time. They didn't just give you the 1 or 2 a year. They got 5 and 6, some got 7, right? So word of mouth got around, and it looked like really quickly by the end of the month, everyone went, all right, this is what they're doing, we can't do that anymore. And that's my observation, you know, and it did look good. It looked better, and it just seemed easier just for all purposes. But if maybe that's where we've lacked in the past is consistency or things of that nature.
Yeah.
Over time, it works out where people accept it. If they don't, then, you know, tell us, and we'll find an answer, a solution, or some agreement. But I think with this issue alone, it's, especially with the whole town being built differently. I mean, I went through all those weird side streets, and, oh, this doesn't work here. Maybe it works here. Okay,
Right.
this subdivision, yes, this subdivision, no. And then I just felt, well, we're in that kind of predicament. We've developed with not a lot of oversight because these weren't things that were probably included. You know, what if parking becomes an issue? How's this new subdivision going to work out? You know, so we just deal with the problems as they arise.
In truth, any ordinance that's enacted is enacted to address a problem.
Right.
And oftentimes it's to address behavior
Hmm.
and then fines or, you know, are levied to try to encourage people to abide by the law. So, and for certain, we've had laws that we've changed. You've all been part of that at some point where laws have been changed. This law was created for the reasons I've already stated. You know, society changes. If the council's interested in changing those, then, you know, obviously you could proceed down. But what I think I'm hearing is not really. So then what is the solution here? If you're not going to change the ordinance, then maybe you provide some kind of permitting to allow it to happen, or you just say, no, this is the rules and that's it. I think the community is looking for direction on what the council wants to do, because maybe the current council flavor feels differently than what was enacted, you know, in 2006, whenever it was, yeah.
Well, and I'm wondering if either of the folks who are here tonight had any comments that they wanted to make. If you do, if you could come up to the podium and give us your name and address. Okay, thank
How
you.
you guys doing?
Good.
Kenneth Walker, 621 Driftwood Lane. So I did receive a sidewalk ticket. I did pay it, but so the workaround that we did, I drive a pickup. So I'm parking up the backside of the driveway because I get up and go to work at 1 o'clock in the morning. So my bumper tends to hang off a little bit. So that's why it is 4 cars. I got 4 children plus me and my wife. So for me, it'd be nice to have the parking on the street. That's how it would benefit me. And then my garage, it's not just full of junk, but it is stuff in there that I need in there. So that's why it'll be a good workaround for me. I mean, I understand, I think there was you that said it's the minority that's complaining or have issues, but I am a homeowner and it would work for me. Just for that simple fact alone, because otherwise we're gonna be playing, musical chairs with the cars in the morning, just so one could go to work and then the other and so on and so forth. So it's easier for me to park at the end of the driveway since I'm leaving out my neighborhood at 1 o'clock in the morning. So that's just one of the issues that we're facing. I can't speak about everyone, but at least for us, that's the issues that we're facing.
Thank you.
Because I know you mentioned about the parking on the sidewalk at the certain times. I've thought about that too, but I don't know if 2 or 5 will even work, to be honest with you, because someone said you get home from work 6 o'clock or so, but I don't know, sundown to sun up. I don't know. I'm just throwing out suggestions, but yeah, that's how we're affected with it.
Okay.
Is there an opportunity for you to expand your driveway?
Well, I do have an HOA, so I will have to go through them, of course. I'm in Country Brook, that's where Driftwood is.
Yep.
So, yes, I have space on both sides, from the left and the right, the north and south side of my driveway, where I can expand it. So, I would have to go through them, then of course go through the city. So even, I can't remember who said it, but if somebody said, don't get the construction permit or something, did someone say that?
I was considering waiving that so that
What-
those issues could be a little easier on the individual.
Because that's a good option for me too. That might even be the better option, if the HOA approves it, of course.
Do you have an opportunity, Mr. Walker, have you seen when you park your car parallel with the street or the curb? Or is you're not set up like that? Because I know in some subdivisions, they'll do that, so they're not over the sidewalk.
Oh, because it's 4 cars.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
so you don't even have that
I
option?
can't, no.
Okay.
Yeah, it's 4.
Just thinking of something in the meantime or short term if it helps, but,
Yeah, right now, the way I'm parking, so both of my axles are on the driveway.
okay.
My front bumper hangs a little bit over the sidewalk, but where the other car is, enough room to walk around it. And then my rear bumper hangs a little bit into the street.
Okay.
And you said you leave at like 1 a.m.?
Yeah, I leave anywhere between 1 and 2:30 in the morning.
So you could park on the street because the current ordinance restricts it from 2 to 5. So,
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's
so
true.
there's nothing preventing you currently to park on the street and then leave from work, leave your car on the street when you leave for work.
Which is true, but I'm a truck driver out of Marengo, so it depends on where I'm going in the morning. So I do have some days I leave at 3:30, but for the most part, it's between 1 and 2:30 for the most part, yeah. But yeah, I didn't think about that.
That kind of goes with like what Chief was saying, like you don't know how long the car's there, so you need that little estimation too. You know, like to help define that more as
Right.
far as how long is it there, you know? So,
But that's my input.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for your comments.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions, comments, observations? Rosa?
No, I don't have any more comments.
So what's your pleasure, folks? We don't have to do anything.
well, in fairness, would this be something that we extend to the council and have a further discussion, or is this something you just say, no, let's keep it as is?
That's your prerogative.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's up to
I'm just
us.
asking because I'm new
Yeah.
at this. I didn't know if I had an
So
option.
Yeah.
generally, in the committee, if the committee comes to a consensus, then you would send it to council. Or you could, if you don't have a consensus, table it, or you could kick it to council because you want the full council to consider the issue. But generally, in the committee structure,
Right.
You're kind of setting the table for what council can consider.
In this situation, is this more of a, good fences opportunity to say, just bring everybody in instead of us deciding that, or is it leave as is? Is there a recommendation as far as the optics of this decision? That's what I'm asking.
That's all on you.
Okay, so it's just one or two, A or B, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I'm personally okay with just, it doesn't go
stands.
on from here. But if folks would like it to go to council,
We ask Rosa if she has any?
Rosa, do you have an opinion?
No, I don't think it should go to council.
Okay.
I think we should leave it as is.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
okay?
I'll make a motion to
Yeah, no
leave it as
action.
is.
You don't
Yeah,
even
don't
need a
have to
motion.
make a
You just-
motion.
Okay, then I won't do that.
It's no
We
action.
just,
No
we had
action.
the discussion, no action.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Tyson. Okay, item number 6, discussion/action on intergovernmental agreement for countywide police assistance. So, hasn't this been the case for a long time?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Yes and no. So the gang task force was an intergovernmental agreement that was made back in the late 90s, where departments joined on and had individuals certified through the state as gang officers, and then were sworn in through the sheriff's department. It kind of got away from gang enforcement to then just municipalities around the county were just requesting the gang unit for extra bodies for community festivals.
Oh.
And the sheriff it was either April's chiefs meeting or May's McHenry County chiefs meeting brought up that it's actually doing that is against the bylaws. You're supposed to only request the gang unit when you have actionable knowledge or situations where there's going to be a gang presence. So basically the gang unit was supplementing police departments for personnel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, and over the years, obviously, with departments manning issues and, always hiring and the state not providing the classes that you need to even get certified to be on the unit, it's really fallen a huge part on to strictly just the sheriff's department, with some municipalities giving a guy maybe one night or here or one night there.
Okay.
So he had proposed, the gang unit's not going away.
Okay,
It's just, he proposed this intergovernmental agreement for assistance for those type of situations. And it's not like a required, you have to send people or anything like that. The only thing is, in this, if a municipality can request that they be reimbursed for their persons man hours and what they're being paid.
Reimbursed by the city, whoever asked for it?
Correct. But that has to be determined before the utilization. So if we request 6 guys for, say, Friday night at midnight, I have to know beforehand if they're going to charge me or not. So if they are, obviously I'm not, it's not in our budget, to do that. So I would just deny it.
Is there any kind of limit on how long you can request for? Or be
No,
requested
there's no
for?
limit.
Only the limit of your budget.
So I did, and I didn't include this in there. So at the time when I did this, I did not have the 2025 numbers for the gang unit of who came out for 2025. So I had 2024's numbers. And in doing the numbers, obviously I don't know what every department pays. I don't know if guys were straight time, time and a half, double time. I don't know. So I just picked $75 per person. And I multiplied that by the hours that they were here. And for the Milk Day weekend of Friday, Saturday, and Sunday came to about $13,000 it cost of additional that's what we possibly could be liable for. I'm not saying we would, but it's a possibility. The way this intergovernmental agreement is worded, though, is chiefs have the option of saying, okay, I'll send you one guy to milk days, but you need to send a guy to me for, what is the Moringa one? Settlers days.
Yeah.
So if I'm sending your guy for 2 days, I want a guy from you for 2 days. And it's a wash. I mean,
It's reciprocal.
it's not a wash. I mean, it depends on what guys are, money-wise, but it's a wash for
Yeah.
personnel. This does allow that, so.
Should be noted that we did notify the Milk Days Board that this issue is going to be an issue for next year, and that there may be additional security costs if the county decides to charge the city for those man hours. Then we would pass that cost on to Milk Days.
So just so you know for numbers, I mean, obviously I gave you the total cost, but on Friday, we have 10 guys, Saturday 5, Saturday between the parade and then the carnival is a total of 11, and then Sunday is 6. And a majority of that besides the parade is for the carnival grounds, because obviously you've all been out there. When I assign 3 guys out there, there's no way for 3 guys to be able to walk around and handle 5,000 people out there. So.
And so right now, we just do that by reciprocating with,
Right now, we got the gang unit this year, because our festival was like a month away, and I was like,
oh, okay.
whoa, like,
Okay,
it's in a month, like, what am I supposed to do?
yeah.
You already put out the sign-up sheet,
Yeah.
so, but no,
Okay.
so this would be moving forward.
Moving forward.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you. And so then the gang unit still exists, but it's just for things that are
Gonna be actionable
clearly
gang.
related
Yeah,
to gang
correct, yes.
activity. Okay,
The only way you can get around is to bring a gang to Milk Days.
Yeah.
Which is not
yeah,
something
please
I would
let's not do
advise.
that.
No.
Okay,
I mean, because, back when this was started, I mean, it was an issue all over the county, and you gotta look at, like, was this an issue back then, and then the gang unit was created, and then it kind of went away, and the gang presence wasn't there because of the presence of the gang officers, or was it something else? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's
right.
hard to say.
So then presumably if a community decides not to sign on to this, then they don't get any help.
Oh, in the email that I got with everybody signing on.
Oh, okay, okay. Okay,
What are we voting on?
yeah,
If everyone's signing on, why are we?
yeah, what's
what are we
our,
doing? What's our,
We need approval by city council to sign the NGA.
oh,
okay,
all right. But we're-
and you
signing on.
recommend,
Yes, I do.
okay,
Okay. Well, that's easy.
okay. Do we have a motion? Other questions? Yeah, motion to forward this to city council?
I'll make that motion.
Okay,
I'll second it.
thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Rosa?
Rosa, are you still with us?
I'm in favor.
Okay, thank you. Okay, all in favor.
Glad we had a choice there.
Okay, item number 7, discussion/action on authorization to renew contract with T-Mobile for the water tank site. Thank you, Tyson.
You too.
There's one correction that needs to be made on Exhibit A in the site agreement, and Eagle Eye Charlie Gorman
In reviewing our packet.
Yes, reviewing the
Online.
packet, picked up that the property identification number was incorrect, and that it was a non-existent
Have them all
number.
memorized or what?
Thank you, Charlie.
Yes, I know. So it should be 01-36-176-031, and it's 030. So,
The question is, Charlie, did you pick it up or did AI? That's the question.
So this agreement was originally signed in 2004. And basically Sprint has reached out to extend that agreement. It's not going to expire for another 3 years. And their ask is that currently they get a 3% increase, or they give us a 3% increase each year on their rent. And the starting amount that's listed on the amendment number 2 would be where we would be at the start of the new 20-year agreement, based on where we're at today, 3% a year.
okay.
So they're just asking to maintain the 3%, and with the starting number being what 3% will be in 2029.
Okay.
We've never had an issue with them. The one thing I did have pointed out, it's in the original agreement, but it's also in the amendment specifically stated that they will, they're responsible for any kind of damage done to the tower. That's important, given the fact that we have a tower maintenance program now. Their structure is welded directly into the tank, and over time that could maybe cause issues, maybe not. Mike Rousey didn't see it being a huge deal, but we put it in there just as a safeguard.
Okay.
This has also been reviewed by legal counsel. They're good with it. I can reach out tomorrow, or after this is approved at city council, if we get approval to their negotiators, ask them to change that PIN, and then we should be good to sign if approved.
Any comments, questions? Motion to recommend approval to the council, by the council?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, John.
I'll second.
Second it.
Okay,
Ooh, she
Rosa
got it.
second. She's quick. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, so goes to council. Okay, item number 8, strategic vision. I don't have anything specific. I mean, we had the committee of the whole just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I know you
I'd
like
recommend at
that,
your next
yeah.
admin meeting, like you
Yes.
spend a bit of time on this and kind of help staff understand what directions you might want to
Okay,
take.
good.
So I'd simply ask, at the next meeting, you dedicate a bit of time to
Okay.
doing that.
That sounds good. Yeah, I was taking notes of what were the items that we hadn't
Hadn't yet tackled.
finished, yes.
Finished or tackled.
Finished or tackled, yes, yes, and what might apply to this committee, so. Item number 9, new business. Any new business?
I just have a couple things.
Okay.
Just update on the window request for proposal.
Oh.
We didn't get any. So actually, we got one, but we rejected it,
Anyone?
if you remember. It doesn't close again until July 31st. We haven't been successful in receiving anything right now, but I did get some suggestions from a certain former alderman who also likes to proof our contracts, of a possibility of maybe changing up that remodel area for the windows, maybe not having to do as many of the windows, or just, making it more efficient, and looking at that possibly in the future. I don't know if we would do that this fiscal year or not, but it's something we can look at should we not get adequate bids for this next
Okay.
go-around. HVAC update, parts are still on order. Most of them, I believe, are in. I'm still waiting to hear back from Hartwig's, but that project's not moving forward until the fall anyway, because right now we need our AC desperately. So we don't want to rip out the unit in July, August, so we'll look at that in the fall when it cools down. KLM Builders did end up paying the permit fees that they owed us for not fulfilling their obligation.
At Huntington Ridge?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, they were, actually, they were never billed for those, so right prior to leaving, Donovan and I discussed just sending them an invoice. He did that before he walked out the door, and we received payment within a week, so.
Okay.
And then, I think that's really all I have right now. We're still waiting on the Rush Creek Bike Path information back from our civil engineer as to what a more accurate estimate of what our cost is going to be on that, other than the $50,000 initial engineering
Right.
that we budgeted for this year, before we move forward with that IGA. So he's still working.
Okay,
That's it.
thank you.
I have a quick update on the interview process for city administrator. We received 4 resumes. I'm going to interview 3. And I don't think the 4th one really met criteria. And then also, we've received, I believe it was 6 or 7 actually, for community development director. I've narrowed that down to 2, but I'm concerned because none of the candidates hold all of the skill sets we're looking for. And so I'm going to interview these people, and then we'll see where, if it makes sense or not.
Yeah.
And if not, then I'll come back to you with some other ideas, but I need to get through this interview first to see if one of these would kind of fill our needs right now.
Okay, and then will Community Development Committee be interviewing?
Yes.
if-
For that position, yes, just as we did last
Yeah,
time.
okay.
And then for city administrator, I would bring it to this
Admin,
committee.
okay. Well, good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Okay. Any other new business? No? Okay, motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we are adjourned 7:23 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Rosa.
Bye,
Bye,
Rosa.
Rosa.
Bye.
More
Thank
people
you,
here to
guys.
talk